Very clearly, everybody knows the Legend of Zelda franchise. It's one of the oldest and most iconic franchises in gaming history. Something I think is so fascinating when talking about Zelda is hearing about people's first Zelda games. Maybe you're old enough to grow up with the original Zelda on the NES, or you love Ocarina of Time because it had such a strong grasp over your childhood. Maybe you just recently got into gaming with the Switch and Breath of the Wild. All in all, these experiences help shape Zelda into the magical franchise it is in your head. And that's an incredible feat no matter which game you started playing. And what was my first Zelda game? Allow me to show you.
Wow. You had a horrible fucking childhood.
For those who don't know, this is the titular sequel to the first Legend of Zelda game, Zelda II: The Adventure of Link. This was my first introduction to Zelda when I was a child, and I've never beaten it before. Now, even if you don't know that much about this game, you've probably heard it referred to as the black sheep of the Zelda family, and it holds that moniker pretty well. Let's start out with the obvious. This game is a side-scroller. Well, this isn't the only time in the Zelda series that side-scrolling has appeared, with specific portions in Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom showcasing that. Most of the actual gameplay of Zelda 2 is done during side-scrolling segments. You traverse the overworld in a top-down view very similar to the way Zelda 1 did it. As you move around, enemies will spawn on the map and try to run into you. If they succeed, a side-scrolling encounter starts and does not end until you leave either side of the screen. Not only are battles like this, but so are temples and towns. It's a super interesting blend of mechanics that works really well and takes advantage of the hardware limitations of the time. We start the game standing in front of Princess Zelda as she's laying down motionless.
Sister! Sister, you killed her!
Lucky for us, this game explains what is going on the title screen. Turns out that after Ganon was defeated in the first game, Zelda was put under a sleeping spell. She will only wake up from said sleeping spell with the power of the Triforce, and we can only access the Triforce once we place 6 crystals in 6 well-guarded palaces. Palaces are this game's dungeons or temples, and I'll be using these words interchangeably as we go on.
What are you writing? Interchangeably? It's a big word for you.
Alright, let's set out on our quest. There are a couple interesting areas we can discover once we leave Zelda. Over to the east is a cave covered in darkness. I can't see things, and they're hitting me. Next up is the cave to the south. I can't see things, and they're hitting me. How about to the cave to the southwest? I cannot see things, and they're hitting me. And finally, the cave to the north. Want to take a wild fucking guess? Very clearly, the game is trying to push me in a specific direction, which makes sense. This is good game design. But anyone who's played this game before knows that I'm leaving a very specific part out. The towns. The towns are kind of like the lifeblood of this game. And I'd like to take a second to deep dive them, as I think they're one of the most interesting aspects of this game.
The towns are the most interesting parts of the game? Man, this game sucks.
I said one of the most interesting, not the most interesting.
Bro, let's play a different game.
What? No. This game was like a core part of my childhood, and in a weird way, I kind of want closure.
Bro, let's play Destiny.
We're not playing Destiny. Anyway, the towns are super interesting. Not only is this where you can stop to heal your life or magic, but you can also get some incredibly useful information and techniques here.
You know what they're doing in there.
Yeah, she's tending his wounds.
Yeah, she is.
Please shut up. Now, you might be wondering exactly what kind of information these towns provide, and the answer to that is pretty much everything. I don't think there is a single puzzle in this game that doesn't have a hint from one of these towns. Besides one specific example we'll get to later, I was pretty much able to beat this entire game without a guide. I did flip through the manual though, and it's actually really worth checking out. Not only does it tell us that you should talk to people in the towns to gain hints, but it also details what each key item does. That way if you're stuck, you can see if a particular item might be able to help you. Now if you don't have the physical manual, that's okay, as Nintendo has a bunch of manuals for their older games available on their website. Now information is great, but what about techniques? Well, don't worry, because there are plenty of techniques to learn in these towns. Up thrust, down thrust, shield, jump, life, fairy, spell, reflect, and thunder. All of these techniques are important in one way or another, and all of them are required to beat the game. Except fire. You don't really need that one. Now how do you learn these techniques? By helping the people of Hyrule, of course.
Water. I need water. Water, please. Please, I need water.
Thanks. Now jump higher.
Sometimes it's a trophy you lost in a house that doesn't belong to you, or you need to get water from a fountain that's like 4 feet from your fucking house. Either way, the people of Hyrule need something and you gotta get it for them. Once you've acquired whatever item it is, you are invited inside and taught one of these techniques. A kid in the town of Rauru says that we can find the candle at Parappa Palace. Sounds good. The candle should help us light up the dark caves. All of this is stuff that makes sense in a Zelda game. There are obstacles and you need to get the item from the corresponding dungeon to be able to deal with them. There's just one tiny problem with that. It's the first cave shrouded in darkness that takes us to the dungeon that has the candle in it. What? You want me to go through an area that would be easier with an item to go get the item? Now I can understand the idea of having you go through something difficult to show how much easier a new item can make things in some areas. That's also a staple of Zelda games, but not at the beginning of the game. And what really doesn't help is that there are 4 dark caves in the starting area, with 2 of them being damage boostable. This is the only time this game does something like this, but it kind of sucks that it's the first area of the game. So, we navigate our way through the dark cave and end up at the first well-guarded palace. This is the first dungeon of the game, and it feels a lot like a Zelda 1 dungeon, but in a side-scrolling format. You kill enemies, collect keys, and fight a boss. There really isn't anything else to point out besides the fact that we got the candle. While the rest of the game was walking through towns and talking to people, this has us actually fighting enemies and collecting items, which is a great change of pace. The boss for this dungeon is Horsehead. You hit him enough and he dies. We then place the crystal into this thing. Is it a statue? I'm calling it a statue. We put the crystal into the statue and gain an automatic level up for doing so. Oh yeah, you can level up in this game. But it's probably the thing that has stopped most people from beating this game. Leveling up is essential if we're going to make it to the end. You can gain experience points through defeating enemies or grabbing P bags, and once you have enough, you level up and can upgrade a specific stat: attack, magic, or life. Attack makes your sword do more damage, magic makes your spells cost less, and life makes you take less damage. However, you don't get to choose what stat you level up. The game has already decided, and you can either accept or cancel. If you cancel, you don't get the upgrade for the specific stat, but you keep all your experience points so that it's quicker to upgrade to the next stat. Once you get a game over or shut the game off, you lose all the experience points you have gained. This is the real kicker right here. If you were having trouble with a specific boss or enemy and wanted to level up, you would have to find a specific area to grind at. You can't just keep retrying what is troubling you because you'll die and lose all that progress. This is one of the most common complaints about Zelda 2, and it's completely understandable. People don't want to grind in their Zelda game. If I were to change one thing about this game, it would be to let you keep your experience points after you die. That way it's an option to grind instead of a requirement. Now that we have the candle, we can go through this cave north of Zelda to get this lady's trophy. Take it to her and her uncle teaches us the jump spell. With the candle and the jump spell, we can finally get through this cave south of Rudo Town. Meandering through these slow-ass swamp tiles brings us to the water town of Saria. On the other side of Saria is a guy who is blocking us from crossing the river. More on him later. To the north and west are boulders blocking the path. Reading the manual says that there's a hammer that can destroy them, so we'll have to get that. The only way it seems we can go now is towards the temple, and after a very slow trek through the swamp, we get there. The second temple is a lot like the first, pretty easy. Something to point out about the design of this dungeon is how it places locked doors before the keys you need to unlock them. It forces the player to search other rooms, hopefully teaching them to explore alternative routes, and also forcing them to backtrack. One thing I wish these dungeons had was a map. I love the feeling of finding a key and then racing back to see it was in the locked door I passed, but not when I can't find the fucking door that was locked in the first place. This dungeon isn't as much as a maze as some of the other ones, but it's still annoying to not know exactly where you're going. Even Zelda 1 had maps and dungeons. We get the handy glove, which allows us to destroy specific blocks with our sword, encounter the boss Helmet Head, hit him enough times till he dies, and put the crystal into the statue. Now we actually didn't have to do this temple right now. We could have gone and got the hammer first. But here's the thing. Do you remember the guy in Saria who was blocking us from crossing the river? In order to have him let you cross the bridge, you have to speak with his friend Bagu. Where do you find Bagu? On a random-ass tile in the forest. Now here's the thing. Technically there is a hint for this. There is a monster in Saria who tells you that his master is north of the river, but that's still a lot of tiles to be searching, not to mention there are puzzles like this later on with much clearer hints. So we find Bagu who tells us to show his note to the guy in Saria. We do that and he lets us cross the river into Death Mountain. Death Mountain is a bunch of different caves that connect together into one big maze. This area is notorious for being super confusing, but I found it to be more difficult than confusing. There are these axe throwing enemies that hit you for a lot of damage. It's really easy to run out of magic and health here. After navigating Death Mountain, we reach this interesting rock formation. Fall down the hole and you'll be greeted with the hammer. Now that we have the hammer, we can pit stop at all the locations where there are boulders blocking the path and get some super useful items like a magic jar and a heart container. See, when you level up your magic in life, it just makes the numbers in those stats go down slower. To actually increase the bar, you need to get magic jars and heart containers respectively. We can also grab the water of life in this cave near the swamp. More on that later. Now we head to the harbor town of Mido, where the first stop on our list is the top floor of the church. By using the jump spell and walking to the basement, we can learn the greatest move in the game by far, the down thrust. The down thrust allows you to not only hit enemies below you, but also bounce off of them. This is a godsend and really speeds up traversal. In a house in this town, we meet a man who tells us that we need to talk to Error of Rudo about the next palace. You know Error, right?
Of course you know Error. It's one of the most talked about parts of this game. The I am Error guy. And Bagu. His name translates to bug, and they're both like synonyms for computer glitches. What makes Error so special in my mind is seemingly why they named him Error. If he would have just been called Steve, and the guy in Mido would have said, go find Steve from Rudo, it wouldn't hold the same amount of weight. The fact that his name is so out of place, even out of place for a Zelda game, is what makes him so memorable, and what makes it such a great hint for finding the next dungeon.
Anyway, we go talk to Error and he tells us to go south of the King's Grave. The King's Grave is pretty obviously located in the middle of the cemetery. We head south and fall into a cave whose exit is too high for us to reach. So, what do?
We gotta turn into a fairy.
Back in Mido Town, we can give the water of life to an old lady and learn how to transform into a fairy.
And I thought turning into a wolf was strange.
Now you're turning into a fairy? Bro, this game lame as hell, man.
Let's play some Destiny.
Shut up about Destiny.
Once we turn into a fairy, we can fly through the exit of the cave and head into the third temple. This dungeon is definitely a step up from the last one. There are these iron-knuckled enemies everywhere, and if I can be completely honest, I never learned how to fight these guys properly. I just kinda kept swinging my sword and hoping that I hit them, while also hoping I blocked their attacks. If I defeat one, it was clearly a defiant act of skill. If I die, it's clearly a poorly designed enemy and shouldn't be here.
I just wish I could crouch and slash at these guys.
These blue iron knuckles are especially annoying. They keep throwing these projectiles at you non-stop. It leads to a stressful fight where there never really feels like a solid opportunity to hit them.
Come on. Come on. God damn it! Woo! Whoa, let's go! Let's go!
My bad. I'm sorry, man.
This temple shows off the handy glove really well. In fact, it's actually necessary to beat it. There are a couple areas with keys buried within blocks, and you need to create a way to get down and back while fighting enemies. After a bit of exploring, we find the raft. This item works similar to how it does in Zelda 1, with you being able to drift out from specific points on the map. Anyway, after enough searching, we get to the boss, Revenak. Revenak is actually pretty interesting. The first phase has him running around on this horse-like craft, and you need to use the down thrust attack to damage him. This part is super fun and engaging, especially when he goes off the screen and you need to predict and prepare for his return. The second phase, however...
God damn it! Woo!
Yeah, so he's basically just another blue iron knuckle, except this time he can go off screen. Normally when you push an enemy to the edge of the screen, they fall, but not this time. He's constantly backing up too, which means you have to lead him to the middle to try and get some hits in. Of course he's throwing shit at you the entire time, but I think what really makes this fight tough is an overarching problem with the game itself. See, every time you die and get a game over, you have to start back at the first screen of the game. That means in order to try our hand at the boss again, we have to wander our way all the way back to the temple, using whatever magic and platforming we used previously. Then we have to go through the temple, still using whatever magic we used, with the added benefit of all the enemies being respawned, then finally, we can face the boss again, only to probably lose and end up right back next to Zelda.
She's dead! She's dead and you killed her!
Up!
This feels very obviously like the NES padding of the old days to try and make games last longer. Either way, after enough trying, we beat Revenak by accidentally cheesing him with the down thrust and move on from this temple. Next, we head back towards Mido, as with the raft, we can cross this body of water. The first town we see after crossing is Deboru. Here we can get the fountain water that's right next to this lady's house and obtain the fire spell. This spell lets us shoot fire out of our sword, which is the only way to kill certain enemies. From here, we head north through this cave and end up at a split path. We head left to the mountain town of Daruna.
These town names start to sound familiar yet?
In Daruna, we can obtain the up thrust and the reflect spell. To get the up thrust, we need to get into this house. The only problem is, someone is blocking the door. One jump spell and a little platforming later, and we can slide down the chimney into the house. The reflect spell is going to be a little bit more tricky. This lady has lost her child, and we need to find him. To find her child, we have to head back to the split path and go right. Here we run into Maze Island. Maze Island will lead us to the next temple, but we need the reflect spell before we head in there. On a random tile near the temple, we fall into a cave. Normally I'd be a little mad about being on a random tile, but there are a couple random tiles that have encounters, so it makes sense to try and check every available path. So we fall into this cave, defeat the lizard guy, and rescue the child.
When we talk about Zelda, we normally just hand wave the amount of items Link can carry. Whether it be something ridiculously big or heavy or a living animal, it normally just all goes to some sort of mysterious storage, and it's only ever mentioned in jokes. But you're telling me that Link puts a child in the same place that he puts his boomerang? A real-life digital child. Sure, whatever.
We then bring the child to the old lady and receive the reflect spell. With all this, we head back towards Maze Island and enter the 4th temple. This temple is alright. It has more iron knuckles than I'd like, but I guess that's what I deserve for getting deeper into this game. Something new about this temple is that there are areas where the game wants you to fall into that won't kill you. They just drop you down to the next screen, which once again is a great reason why we should have a map. A big complaint I have with this temple is that you can totally enter it and not be ready to fight the boss at all. The boss here is Karok, and he shoots magic at you. The only way to damage him is to reflect his magic back at him, meaning if you don't have the reflect spell, you're just fucked. It's not hard to miss the reflect spell. Literally just go right instead of left at this split path and you'll just think it's the correct way to go. This means you could do all the work and then not be able to get the payoff for it. Even if you go back and get the reflect spell, you still have to go through the temple again to get back to the boss. Anyway, we activate the reflect spell and then just kind of wait for the attacks to bounce off him.
So much for well guarded.
Now you may have noticed that we didn't get an item while going through this temple, and that is 100% my fault. You can actually beat a lot of the temples without getting the items you need to move forward, and thankfully they don't disappear. Normally when you beat a temple, it turns into a rock, but if you forget to grab an item, the temple still exists until you go back and grab the item. Here we get the boots. These boots allow us to walk on water, which is good because that's exactly what we need to head into the next temple. The 5th temple in this game is the 5th temple in this game. I really don't have much to say about it. Well, except the wall you have to walk through. Yeah, you heard that right. There's a wall we can just walk right through to get the item in this temple. This might seem like utter bullshit, but there's a guy in Daruna who tells you about this. The item we get is the flute, which will be useful later. And, guess I could talk about the green walls. They look pretty cool. In fact, all the dungeons have their own color, which is really nice, because the Famicom version only has blue and gray for their walls.
Aren't you going to explain all the differences between this game and the Japanese version?
No. The boss in this temple is Guma, and this guy is actually kinda tough. He moves slowly and attacks quickly, making it kinda hard to get in on him. So maybe there is a temple that is actually well guarded. Space him out effectively, and after enough tries, you should be able to beat him. We place another crystal into another statue and move on. With the flute, we can scare away the river monster. Oh yeah, I didn't mention him before, but he's just blocking us from being able to access part of the map. Once we play the song, he, leaves, and we can proceed down.
Isaac, what the hell are you doing?
Oh, I'm just trying to look for your Xbox so we could play some Destiny.
I don't own an Xbox.
Bro, how are we supposed to play Destiny?
We're not playing Destiny!
While traveling south, we run into these lizard guys who throw rocks at us. They have incredible aim. Put these guys outside of the temples and maybe they'll actually be well guarded. After the lizard folk, we spot a village east of the cemetery. We enter the village and find out its name is Kasuto and that it's deserted. Entering the first house, you'll be greeted by an old man who says that the town is dead and we need to head east. Exploring the rest of the village shows us houses and other buildings destroyed. Exploring is tough though, as there are things I can't see and they are hitting me.
This is a surprisingly cool amount of world building for a game like this. As I said before, the towns are kind of like the lifeblood of Zelda II, so seeing one destroyed kind of reminds you why you're doing all this.
So where did the villagers flee to? To answer that, we have to head north through the swamp area and enter this cave. On the other side, we run into this tiny little forest and a dead end. This part took me way too long to figure out. You're supposed to destroy the trees and find the village. Now how the fuck was I supposed to know how to do that? The answer comes to us once again in the form of the manual. Under the hammer, it says that we can break rocks and cut trees. This is the only time in the game that this is necessary. We got the hammer near the beginning of the game, and the only other hint we have to go off of is to search east. It's not completely unfair, but there are a lot of ways that these clues can be lost or misconstrued. Anyway, we enter the hidden town of Kasuto and do what people normally do in towns. Find people to teach us shit. We find a house with a fireplace we can go down and learn the spell. The spell allows us to go to the edge of town, summon a large structure, get the magical key from inside, and that's it. No, seriously, that's all the spell does. That's kinda lame, but not as lame as what we're about to run into. Remember when I said that the game pretty much gives you a hint for everything except for one example? There's an old lady in this town who asks if we have the 7 magic containers. What we are supposed to do here is have all the magic upgrades we can get at this point, get the final upgrade from her, go back to the deserted town of Kasuto, and learn the thunder spell from the old man. The problem is, I'm missing one of the magic upgrades. Now, where might it be, you might ask?
It's in a random tile on Maze Island.
Now, I know I said that there are a bunch of random tiles that have encounters, but what happened to me is that I found the child and not the magic jar, so I didn't think to search the rest of the tiles. Now I'm at the end of the game and have no idea where to search for this thing. Theoretically, it could be on any random tile in the entire game. Anyway, with all this, we are finally ready to tackle the 6th temple. There is a guy in New Kasuto who tells us to call for help with the 3-eye rocks. Heading south will show us these 3 rocks, and the only way we have to call for help is with the flute. The first thing we need to talk about is the magical key we obtained from New Kasuto. Not only is it a powerful late game tool that allows you to ignore keys, but it prohibits you from entering the 6th temple until you have it. This is such a great way to guide players into the right direction in case they get to this temple too early. The 6th temple is pretty much more of the same. More difficult enemies put into more difficult places. Other than that, there really isn't too much else that's interesting. There are these pits you can fall into that look just like normal floor. That's pretty much it when it comes to diversity in this dungeon. The way we get to the boss is kind of interesting. The only accessible route to him is this pit while you're falling, so you gotta turn into a fairy to reach it. The item we get is the cross. This will allow us to see the invisible enemies in Kasuto, encouraging us to stop there to get the thunder spell. The boss of this dungeon is probably my favorite in the game, Barba. Barba is a dragon who will pop out of the lava and shoot fire at you. I really love this fight. It perfectly blends avoiding hits and striking at the right moment. Not to mention we're fighting a dragon, which is just cool. We place the final crystal into the final statue and we are finally ready to head for the Great Palace. To get to the Great Palace, we need to head west from where we are and head down through the cemetery. We have now entered Death Valley, and after one too many repeat sections against the same enemies, we reach the Great Palace.
Now, the Great Palace is a great dungeon, but do you know what really makes this place great? It's that when you die, you spawn at the beginning of the dungeon instead of the beginning of the game. Why the fuck did we wait until the literal last dungeon to do this? It's like a thank you for playing the game this far.
Anyway, this place feels like a maze, and there's a couple of new enemies for us to face. Folkaru, the 2 Fokas, and King Bubble will make sure that you getting to the end of the game isn't easy. Dead end after dead end awaits you, but since we respawn at the entrance, remembering the correct path is pretty easy. I really love shooting down this narrow pit, thinking it'll be a secret, but it's actually just the correct way to go. After a while of exploring, we reach the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is the mini-boss of this dungeon and can only be defeated with the Thunder Spell. The Thunderbird doesn't take any damage until the Thunder Spell is cast. You'll know it worked if you change colors. Jump and wail on him until he's defeated. He then drops a key, which is useless because we have the magical key, and we head for the final room. This is Shadow Link, and he can be a bit of a pain. He always keeps a good distance away from you and can be hard to hit. Fire, up thrust, and down thrust don't work on him, so you'll have to rely on just your regular slashes and gaming instincts.
Alright, let's do this. Alright, so this is going to be a little bit tougher than we thought, but that's okay, because there's one classic trick up our sleeve, and it's a pro gamer move. Yes! Yes! I did it! I did it! What? And that's Zelda II. A good game with good ideas that's unfortunately bogged down by... That was weird. A good game with good ideas that's unfortunately bogged down. What the hell is happening?
What's your problem, man? Can't you sit still or something?
Probably ate too many chips again. Fatty.
Who the hell are you?
I knew you were gonna ask that. I'm your shadow.
You can't be my shadow. We don't look anything alike. You're wearing glasses.
Oh yeah? How about this?
Yeah, you still don't really look like me. Can you even see without those?
No. I'm gonna put them back on now, actually.
Okay, yeah. Also, you can't be my shadow because I've seen you in other places.
I hid in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Wow, that's so cool. Whose side are you on?
Don't worry, buddy. We're on your side.
He's not! He's literally on his side. Isaac, get the fuck back over here. Sorry, he's an idiot.
Yeah, I don't really care. Anyway, you die now.
Hey guys, what do you think I should do about this? Yeah, but Link doesn't use the Master Sword. I just wish I could crouch and slash at these guys.
Programmer move. Some destiny.
What the fuck are you doing? Ah, stop that!
No. Get away from me. Get away from me. No. No. Get away from me. No. No. And that's Zelda II, a good game with good ideas that's unfortunately bogged down by old NES horseshit. You could say this game is just a bunch of fetch quests, but figuring out those fetch quests is what made it so much fun and enjoyable for me. We'll probably never see a Zelda game like this again. Maybe a spiritual successor in the style of A Link Between Worlds, with new puzzles and dungeons we can tackle in any order. In a way, I'm happy that this was my first Zelda game. It gave me this sense of wanting to complete something that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. And that was an amazing experience I'll probably never forget. Even though I've spoiled pretty much the entire game, I'd still recommend that you play it. Maybe wait a year until you forget all the puzzles.
Did you just kill that guy?
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.